I am not gonna sugarcoat it. With wedding bells comes wedding bills. Our wedding wingman is no stranger to the fact that not always do you, your fiance, your family see eye to eye when it comes to your wedding budget. In this video, you'll learn how a wedding planner can stretch your budget to make everyone happy. Make your vision for your big day a reality with her budget-savvy tips and tricks. Let's go see who's getting you ready for your day in a budget-savvy way.
Thanks, Vanessa, for the introduction. So hi, everybody. I'm Ashley McCone with Always Flawless Productions. We're a wedding planning and design studio. And today I'm really excited because we're going to be talking to you about wedding design. We're going to be talking about some of the tips and tricks on how to create the design you're looking for, but without breaking the bank. So without further ado, let's dive into some of our tips. So before you dive into all of the details, I want you to focus on booking your big vendors, such as your caterer, your venue, and your photographer. And the reason I say that is those big vendors are going to be the bulk of your budget. So once you book them, you're going to have a better idea of how much money you have left over in order to allocate towards all the design and all of the fun details of the day. Also, once you book all of those vendors, you'll have a little bit more bandwidth left and you can really focus on the fun details and not stress over having to do too many things at once. Now we can dive into all of our design tips for the day. All right, so our first design tip of the day is I don't want you guys to do everything. So what I mean by that is don't try and incorporate every design detail you've ever seen on Pinterest. So what happens when you do this, I find that you're either gonna spend way more money than you intend to, because all those little details add up quickly, and you're gonna get stressed because it's gonna be a lot of little things and it's gonna take a lot of time to get through all of them. So my recommendation, instead of doing everything, is to pick one or two items of the day and really splurge on those and make those the focal point of both your ceremony and reception space. So when it comes to your ceremony, what I mean by that is pick one element in your ceremony that I want you guys to go really big on. I want you to put the bulk of your budget there. So for your ceremony, I usually recommend that being your arch. The reason I say that is that's where all of your guests are gonna focus when they walk into your ceremony. It's also where you're gonna be standing during the ceremony itself and where all of your photos are gonna take place that day. So really focusing on that arch is gonna be that biggest spot to put your money and your efforts that day. Moving into your reception space, when I say pick one or two areas of there to really splurge on, a few recommendations I would have there would be to focus on one, could be your sweetheart table. So again, your sweetheart table is gonna be a spot where a lot of photos are gonna take place. It's where you're gonna be seated all night, and it's where all of your guests' attention is gonna be once they're in that space. A couple ways you can kind of splurge on that section is to add some fun floral, add extra floral there, to add some extra lighting. Really just make it this really cool space that everybody wants to see. Some other options and ways you can splurge in areas in your reception could be to pick unique chairs. So when your guests walk into your reception space, chairs are one of the first things they notice. So maybe instead of taking your standard folding chairs that you see at a lot of receptions, maybe upgrade those to something like a dining chair that you might have in your house. Or if you're going for more of a glam look, maybe bring in some gold or some really fancy chairs that you could put in there instead. So things like that are gonna be a few ways where your guests are really gonna notice something different and where you can really create some focal points and splurge in your reception space. Now let's move on to our next design tip, which is going to be repurposing. All right, so our next design tip for the day is going to be repurposing a lot of your decor. So the reason I recommend doing this is when you repurpose decor from your ceremony to your reception, you're actually going to save yourself money and be able to use things in more than one spot. One of my favorite ways for you to repurpose decor is potentially to use your ceremony arch for your reception space. Now this only works if you're at certain venues. Not everywhere can you use your arch and bring the entire arch into your reception space. But if you can, I recommend being able to use that arch as potentially the backdrop to your sweetheart table or potentially as a backdrop to your cake. Kind of adds that extra decor and again creates another focal point in your reception space without having to add any more money into the decor that you're bringing in. So now if you're in a place where you can't actually bring in your entire arch into your reception, another great way to do that would be to take all of the floral that's on your arch and bring just the floral into your reception space. So again, another great place to put that floral could be on your sweetheart table. It could be to put it on your head table. You could potentially put it on your dessert table, or really any other place where you feel needs a little bit of extra floral. So those are kind of the two best ways to repurpose your arch. Now, another way to pull some of the floral from your reception space is if you have centerpieces going on all of your reception tables, you could potentially bring those into the ceremony and use those to either line the aisle or to set at the entrance of that aisle. So again, that's another great way where you can pull decor that you already are using and use it in another way, adding extra decor without adding extra money. So those are kind of my main tips when it comes to repurposing. So now let's move on to our next tip, which is going to be creating some unique layouts. So our next design tip for the day is actually going to be a little bit of a unique one. My recommendation here is to actually play with some unique setups. So going this route actually isn't going to cost you any extra money, which is a bonus, but it just creates a really different visual interest for the day, which is going to make your day feel like you're adding a lot of different design elements. So let's kind of start with your ceremony again. So with your ceremony, typically when you've gone to a ceremony, it's set up in the way where you have 2 rows of chairs set essentially straight across, and you're gonna have a bride and groom in the front in an arch. So that's kind of that standard setup that you'll see when you go to a wedding. So my recommendation is to play with that. So maybe instead of doing 2 straight rows of chairs, have you as the bride and groom in the middle and sit chairs all the way around you guys, essentially creating a circle. So this is a really fun route to go just because you don't have to bring in any extra decor, but you're gonna set the space up in a way that's gonna feel really unique and is gonna create a really cool design element for your ceremony. So that's kind of one recommendation of how to do that for your ceremony. Moving into your reception space, my recommendation there would be to play with different kinds of tables. So when you go to get married at a place like a hotel, typically they're gonna have all round tables and they're gonna send you a diagram with all different round tables for your guests to sit at. So that can be great, but an option to be able to add some unique interest into that reception space would be to potentially play with adding in some rectangular tables. So this can be really fun because it mixes up the look of that reception space and adds a little bit more dimension. So you're gonna have a mixture of round tables and then rectangular tables in that reception space, and all of a sudden it's gonna have a different feel. It's gonna add a lot more dimension into your reception. So playing with those reception setups is a great way to add some cool design elements without adding any extra money. So now let's move on to our next design tip, which is lighting. So our next design tip is actually going to be playing with lighting. So this is one of the most underutilized ways of adding unique elements into your wedding and can be a relatively inexpensive way to go. So one of the best ways to do this is simply to add some candlelight into your reception space. Some candles, if you add a lot of them, they can get pricey, but you can really add some smaller votive candles to all of your tables, which will add a really good glow. And then typically if you're indoors at a reception space, you'll go ahead and dim all of those lights a little bit during dinner and then dim them a little bit more once people get dancing. And all of a sudden you're gonna have this really pretty glow without needing to bring in a lot of extra decor. So it's kind of a little design hack to add that extra romantic vibe into your wedding. A couple other ways you can play with lighting if you wanna spend a little bit more or splurge on that element would be to add some fun uplighting around the room. Now, if you're not familiar with uplighting, it's essentially a small light that a lot of your DJs will actually have in-house, and they'll set them around the base of the room, and it just sends light up against the walls to add a little bit of a cool lighting element throughout the space. You wanna go a little bit bigger, you can add some really fun chandeliers into your reception space. So those can be something that you put over your reception space, or you can hang over your head table or sweetheart table to add an extra glow there. So those are my tips when it comes to lighting and a way to add some inexpensive design hacks into your wedding reception. So now let's move into our next tip, which is gonna be decorating with purpose. All right, so our last design tip for the day is actually going to be decorating with purpose. So what I mean by that is to be very intentional with any and all decor you buy for your wedding day. So as a planner, I can't tell you how often I get handed a box or boxes of decor from a bride, and she basically tells me, we found all of these really cool things on Etsy and we don't know exactly where they're gonna go, but we trust you, so go ahead and include them anywhere you think is gonna be fit, and if you don't end up using all of them, that's fine. We just thought they were a good option. So while that's a great route to go, and I always try and use as much of that decor as I possibly can, I find that a lot of it isn't needed. What I mean by that is a lot of these extra pieces of decor, such as Mr. and Mrs. signs and little extra pieces pieces that you've seen don't really have a place, and we're searching for a spot to put it on your wedding day. So I find instead of buying all of these extra decor pieces, spend that extra money on some of those focal points we talk about, and then buy a few small elements to add into your day, but only buy them if you know exactly where they're going. That's gonna save you some extra money, and it's gonna allow you to put a little bit more money towards things that are gonna really have an impact in that visual aspects of your day. I hope you enjoyed all of our tips to help you budget for wedding design and help you get the most bang for your buck. So if you guys want more inspiration, be sure to check the description below and you can follow along on Instagram. And be sure to head over, you can check out our website for more inspiration and tips for planning your wedding. And I actually have a really great guide for you guys to check out today, how to budget for your wedding. So we're gonna actually walk you through setting a budget and how to go about that process. And don't forget to click the like button below and share this video with anybody you think might find it helpful. And last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to Wed Mayhem for more wedding planning advice from both myself and other wedding professionals. Again, I'm Ashley McCone with Always Flawless Productions, and I'm here with Wed Mayhem, and we're vowed to your vision.